This offseason has been, let's say, underwhelming. No big splashy moves, no league shattering trades, nothing. Just look what the Golden State Warriors did this offseason, nothing. But if there's one move that made all the headlines, it was the Houston Rockets signing of the future Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest scorer of all time, Kevin Durant. Now suddenly the Rockets are one of the top contenders in the West. But this modern Houston Rockets team did not take off overnight. It has been built through dozens of Lego pieces that once fitted together perfectly until they weren't. Signings, trades, controversies, and a bunch of sandwiches defined the decade for the forgotten kings in the NBA. Ever since the back-to-back championships in 1994 and 1995, the Houston Rockets have been desperately trying to regain their former glory, and well, they had their chances. The big three in Sir Charles, Hakeem, and Clyde Drexler in the late 90s, the dynamic duo in T-Mac and Yao Ming in the 2000s, and of course the James Harden era in the 2010s. The Rockets have always been that team that is always lurking in the Western Conference, always a threat, but cannot deliver that final blow. Almost every season, you can guarantee that the Rockets would make the playoffs, but couldn't place your bet to win it all. It's always the missing piece for the Rockets. In 1997, after the Rockets acquired Hall of Famer Charles Barkley, the team dramatically improved to 57 wins and was poised to be a legitimate contender in the West. But with an all-time classic game winner by John Stockton, all those dreams in Clutch City went down into the drain. After that, Sir Charles' hopes for a championship with the Rockets crashed, burned into ashes as the legend got derailed by injuries. Going into the 2000s, Rockets set their sights on a rebuild, and well, they have successfully completed the rebuild, molding a squad that revolves around global sensation Tracy McGrady and a once-in-a-generation player in Yao Ming. Did you know that once in 2008, this duo led the Rockets on a franchise-setting record of 22-game winning streak? Yeah, they were that good, but unluckily for them, they faced a hungry, motivated Kobe Bryant in the second round of the 2009 playoffs, where they pushed the eventual champions in 7 games, and then the Rockets once again were plagued by injuries. Another great squad who didn't reach its full potential by the 2010s. The Rockets franchise were determined to bring back the Larry O'Brien Trophy to Clutch City with the help of the man who's controlling and managing the ship since 2007, Daryl Morey. Entering the 2010s, the Rockets were in desperate need of a cornerstone, a franchise player. They had Hakeem in the 90s, T-Mac in the 2000s. Now, it's time to find the next captain of the Rockets. After missing their third straight playoffs in 2012, the Houston Rockets were determined to take a splash in the offseason. They had tons of cash and a lot of assets to land their next superstar, and they got just the perfect guy, James Harden. The Rockets in the 2010s were shaped by this one single signing. When the Houston Rockets made the move for James Harden in October of 2012, no one realized it would define the entire decade of basketball in Houston. Harden wasn't a household superstar yet. He was a young sixth man in Oklahoma City, playing behind Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. But Rockets general manager Daryl Morey saw something no one else did. He believed Harden wasn't just a scorer off the bench. He believed Harden could be the centerpiece of a franchise. The Rockets traded Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb, and a bundle of draft picks to the Thunder in exchange for Harden. Almost immediately, Harden proved Morey right. In his very first game as a Rocket, Harden exploded for 37 points. That was the opening statement for what would become one of the most impactful trades of the modern NBA. From that moment on, Houston's identity changed. The Rockets were no longer a team hanging on to the past of Hakeem Olajuwon or the short-lived Barkley Drexler years. They were a team with a superstar, and for nearly a decade, everything in Houston basketball revolved around James Harden. The Rockets went all in on surrounding Harden with the right pieces. They signed Dwight Howard in 2013, creating a duo that, while flawed, pushed Houston into serious playoff contention. It's like a Kobe-Dwight type of duo once again, and just like Kobe and Dwight, the Harden-Howard partnership didn't last long, but it was proof that stars wanted to come to Houston. After Howard's departure, the team doubled down on Harden's offensive brilliance. By 2016, Harden was a perennial all-star and MVP candidate, but the Rockets weren't satisfied with just regular season wins. Daryl Morey wanted the ultimate prize, a championship. In 2017, he made the boldest move of his career by trading for Chris Paul. That single transaction catapulted Houston into its golden window. Suddenly, Harden's unmatched scoring was paired with one of the smartest point guards in NBA history. The results were league-shattering. The 2017-18 Rockets became one of the most dominant teams in franchise history, finishing with 65 wins, the best record in the league. They weren't just good, they looked unstoppable. What made those Rockets so special wasn't just Harden and Paul. It was the roster that Morey and coach Mike D'Antoni had built around them. Eric Gordon came off the bench as a lethal shooter. P.J. Tucker was the defensive bulldog, guarding multiple positions and hitting big corner threes. Clint Capella blossomed into a rim-running, shot-blocking force. Trevor Ariza gave them length, defense, and veteran poise. It was, in every sense, the perfect supporting cast for Harden's peak. The Rockets of 2017 to 2019 were built on spacing threes and Harden's isolation scoring, a style of play that revolutionized modern basketball. Harden's step-back three became one of the most feared shots in the league. Opposing defenses knew what was coming but were powerless to stop it. And when defenses overloaded on Harden, Chris Paul's mid-range mastery and Gordon's outside shooting made Houston unguardable. The league was actually rooting for the Houston Rockets. Why? Because everyone's sick of Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. There's only one team in the NBA who got a legitimate chance of spoiling Durant's quest for a championship, and that's Houston. Year after year, Houston became the team best built to challenge them, but year after year, it ended in heartbreak. The 2018 Western Conference Finals was the closest. The Rockets had Golden State on the ropes, up 3-2 in the series, one win away from the NBA Finals. But when Chris Paul's hamstring gave out late in Game 5, Houston's hopes gave out with him. Game 6 and 7 slipped away, and the Warriors advanced. And don't even mention those 27 straight missed threes. That loss was devastating, not just because of how close Houston came, but because it felt like their best shot. The following year, 2019, brought more pain. The Rockets once again met Golden State in the playoffs, and once again, they fell short. Kevin Durant went down injured in Game 5 of that series, but instead of capitalizing, Houston couldn't finish the job. Steph Curry erupted in the second half, eliminating Houston on their own floor. Harden and the Rockets were forced to watch another championship slip through their fingers. The frustration mounted for Harden, for management, and for fans. The repeated defeats to Golden State were psychological blows. The Warriors were the immovable object standing between Houston and a title, and no matter what the Rockets tried, they couldn't break through. In the summer of 2019, Daryl Morey and the Rockets made a shocking move. They pulled the plug. They traded Chris Paul along with multiple first-round picks to Oklahoma City for Russell Westbrook. The idea was bold: reunite Harden with his former Oklahoma City teammate and create a new backcourt built on athleticism and scoring. Two perennial MVPs sharing the floor, but from the very beginning, the fit was awkward. Westbrook and Harden both needed the ball in their hands. While they were still two of the most dynamic guards in the league, the combination never clicked in the way Houston hoped. There were flashes of brilliance, particularly when Westbrook went on a hot stretch in early 2020, but the flaws were too glaring. The Rockets still lacked the balance and defensive toughness of their 2017 roster, and the Westbrook-Harden experiment fell flat. The 2020 NBA bubble playoffs were the breaking point. The Rockets beat the Thunder in a dramatic 7-game series, but in the second round, the Los Angeles Lakers dismantled them in 5 games. Small ball, Harden isolations, and Westbrook's inefficiency couldn't match up with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. By then, it was clear Houston's championship window was closed. Then came the breaking news in November 2020. Daryl Morey, the architect of the Harden era, stepped down as general manager. A month later, head coach Mike D'Antoni, the offensive mastermind behind Houston's success, was gone too. The Rockets were spiraling down. For James Harden, this was the final straw. He looked around and saw no Chris Paul, no contender, no Morey, no D'Antoni, just a roster in transition and an organization shifting direction. Harden made his feelings clear. He wanted out. The saga that followed was chaotic. Harden showed up to training camp late, out of shape, and visibly frustrated. His body language in games told the story. He was done. In a now infamous post-game press conference in January 2021, after a blowout loss, Harden said, "We're just not good enough. I love this city, but I've literally done everything I can. This situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed." The next day, the Rockets had no choice. They agreed to a blockbuster trade, sending Harden to the Brooklyn Nets in a 4-team deal. In return, Houston received a mountain of draft picks and young assets, the foundation for their future rebuild. And just like that, the Harden era was over. Nearly a decade of offensive fireworks, MVP seasons, and heartbreaking playoff battles came to an abrupt end. The Rockets were left with no superstar, no championship, and no clear path forward, only draft picks, potential, and the long, uncertain road of rebuilding. But as the Harden era closed, a new chapter began, one that would eventually bring Houston back to the national spotlight in a completely different way. The next few years were tough, though. The Rockets went from contender to obscurity almost overnight. They finished the 2021 and 2022 seasons near the bottom of the Western Conference, but for a rebuilding team, losing meant lottery chances. And with those picks, Houston began to assemble its new core. In 2021, they selected Jalen Green, a hyper-athletic guard who could score in bunches. Later that same year, the Rockets traded for the rights to Turkish big man Alperen Şengün. What looked like a quiet draft night move quickly became one of the smartest decisions in franchise history. Şengün blossomed into a unique star, a passing big man with footwork and vision reminiscent of legends. The second evolution of Nikola Jokic. By 2022 and 2023, Houston continued to stack young talent. Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, Amin Thompson. Each pick added a piece to the puzzle, and slowly, the identity of the Rockets began to form. They weren't Harden's Rockets anymore. They were a team built on youth, energy, and potential. Still, a young core alone wasn't enough. The turning point came in the summer of 2023 when Houston made a bold free agency signing, Fred VanVleet. The veteran point guard, fresh off his run in Toronto, brought leadership, stability, and championship experience to a roster filled with prospects. Alongside VanVleet, veteran forward Dillon Brooks joined, giving Houston toughness and defensive grit. In the 2023-24 season, the Rockets shocked the league by winning 52 games. Alperen Şengün emerged as an all-star, dazzling with triple-doubles and crafty post-play. Jalen Green found his rhythm as a scorer, while VanVleet and Brooks kept the team grounded. Houston went from a rebuilding project to one of the NBA's biggest surprises. The rebuild was no longer theoretical, it was real. Houston had gone from the bottom of the standings to a playoff team, and suddenly, the league had to take them seriously again. But the Rockets weren't done. In the summer of 2025, they made a move that sent shockwaves across the NBA, a 7-team trade that brought Kevin Durant to Houston. In one of the most complex trades in league history, the Rockets packaged Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, and future assets to acquire the superstar forward. Alongside Durant, they also brought back a familiar face, Clint Capella, reuniting the big man with the franchise where he first blossomed. The deal was headline-grabbing for 2 reasons. First, it signaled that Houston's rebuild was officially over. They were no longer collecting prospects, they were going all in. Second, it showed that after years of being overlooked, Houston was once again a destination for superstar talent. Now the Rockets' core of Durant, Şengün, VanVleet, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, and Amin Thompson looks poised to compete at the highest level. And it all came from the decision in 2021 to trade James Harden and embrace the uncertainty of a rebuild. With more than a decade of blockbuster moves for the Rockets, it's championship or bust. Do you think the Rockets can give Durant its 3rd championship?